All right, hi everyone. So we're going to be talking about retopologization and why topology is important in your models. So in this class, we're modeling everything with the idea that eventually we will be rigging the characters or animating them in some way. And so, the idea is that you make a drawing, you create the character as a model, and then you rig said character, and then you can actually animate it and then render it, and then you have a full-fledged film. And part of this is modeling with a good sense of topology. Now, topology as a term refers to proper edge flow and face flow across the surface of a model so that it deforms properly when it is rigged and animated. Now, this can, take a variety of shapes, but the very simple definition or very simple example I have here shows why topology is important. So I have four cylinders here, and each one of them have different topologies. One of them has no divisions along the sides. One of them has one division. One of them has three divisions. And one of them has five. Okay. And let's say if this is like a tail or an elbow or a knee, um, we're going to need for that character or that um, limb to be able to actually bend, and we want the mesh to deform properly to show deformations. Okay, so we don't want it to screw up. So I have a couple of joints, three joints put into each one of these cylinders, and let's see what happens when I do bend the joint. Now the joint and the mesh have been actually skinned together, so there is a connection between the two. Now, if we look at this one again, it has no divisions going up and down. So if I just take this elbow joint and bend it, you'll see what happens. It doesn't actually deform around the joint. What happens is it basically just has the caps on either side stay with their respective joints, but there's no bending in the middle. And so that brings up the need for a um, having an edge loop around that middle joint. So if we put one edge loop there, you'll see what happens. Now it actually bends, but the thing is you see it actually pinches. See how it pinches right there? So that's not great. Whenever we have joints that we want to have some sort of mobility around them, the most basic rule is to have at least three edge loops, one above, one at, and one below the um, the joint. And so what that does is that allows us to preserve some of our volume as we bend the mesh. So you can see here that it still collapses a little bit, but because of these extra edge loops, this gives us a little bit more control over the volume that's being lost. And I'm sure you probably hear my son in the background. So if we go through and look at this last one, we'll see that this one has some extra edge loops, one above and one below, so we have a total of five. And so here, if we bend it, we'll see that we get full volume retention. It's just bending like a rubber hose or like a knee or an elbow really should. And this is really, really important. So if nothing else, what I want you to get out of this lesson is the importance of topology. Topology is um, is what basically supports our mesh when we animate it. Making sure that we rely on quads, which are four-sided faces, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Having an absence of n-gons, which n-gons, as you learned in Intro to 3D, are faces that have more than four sides. Those do not deform well and they do not render well. And we want to try to limit the use of tris, which are three-sided faces or triangles. We do have them here on the caps, but these aren't really deforming, so it's not a huge problem. Following these rules will generally help you create good topology. Now, the second part about topology is understanding where to actually put edge flow. What kind of pattern should you be following? Well, is actually um, there is actually a pattern to follow. So, starting off with the face, we see that we have almost a spider web design that goes across the face and around the eyes and around the mouth and nose and in these areas. Now, this particular pattern can be translated to pretty much any character you can imagine. We can basically put this on anything. Um, these edge loops and face loops are what allow us to deform highly mobile points of the body. So the head, for example, you'll see here has a clean face loop that goes around the bottom of the or the top of the neck, but right below the head, right there. You'll see clean face loops that go around, let's say, the mask line. You know, if you're going to put a mask on, it would kind of fit across here. You would have a face loop that goes through the jawline. You would also be having clean face loops that go around the eyes. Notice how they don't go off into various directions. It's just going straight around the eye. And then there's multiple edge loops that go around the eyes that gets closer to the eyelid. That's really important. So you need to have this spider web pattern coming out. Additionally, we have clean face loops that go around the muzzle, which is going to be basically from the bridge of the nose to the right under the lip, right around the chin. And then we have clean face loops around the lips. Now, the more mobile something is going to be on the face or the body part, generally it's better to have more edge loops. So areas like the brow, the lips, cheeks, things like that, you're going to want to have a higher density of edges and faces. Now, areas where we do not have a lot of mobility, like say the top and the back of the head, these areas, you notice we do not have a huge amount of face loops or edge loops here. They're just enough to support the shape of the head and any details like the ears, but we don't over encumber the mesh with unnecessary face loops and edge loops. So for me, there are two methods for creating good topology, to retopologize a model. I use, I primarily have used in the past Maya. Maya has the quad draw tool, which I'll be publishing a video for that. And then also there is a retopology tool, or I think it's just called topology inside of ZBrush, which you can basically just draw on your topology fairly cleanly and create a mesh that way. So I'll be doing a video on that as well. Additionally, while I got you here, let me also discuss proper topology for the body. So let's go ahead and grab a picture here. So if we look at, let's say, it really, honestly, if you just Google topology for the body or topology for the face, you will find lots of really wonderful designs or wonderful references for proper topology around the body. So a couple things that I generally tend to follow, and it's pretty much the same for men and women, is you want to have clean face loops for any appendage, okay? You want to follow the anatomy of that appendage or any limbs that you are retopologizing. You want to try to keep your topology relatively low, as we're going to be basically creating a low resolution version of a mesh. And you want to make sure you have enough topology to support important details. Okay, so I know I'm saying have low topology, but also have high topology. So what I'm saying is, if there's details like, say, a nipple on this character, you need to have something there in order to support that. So you need to have like face loops and edge loops in order to create that detail. But if you have something that's not necessarily um, high detail, like say the abdominals or the shoulder, then it's okay not to have a heavy amount of density, face density here. You'll notice that we tend to have a heavier face density around the face, hands, areas that are going to flex. You'll see here on the knees, on the toes, areas where there's going to be a lot of movement. You're going to see more density there. So let's take a look at one of my rigs and show you guys kind of how my stuff looks. So this is Louis. He was pretty much fully hand retopoed. And so you'll see here kind of some of the choices I made. So he does follow the same rules that I just talked about with a face loop that goes around the eyes. There is a clean face loop that goes around the mouth, even though he has a very odd mouth shape. There are face loops that go around the neck. Around these horns, you'll see that there's face loops that go around each one of these like scoots. If we click on the coat, you'll see here that there's a higher density of face loops that goes around the elbow, the shoulder, in order to allow for proper movement and proper folding of that area. Same thing for the knees, or same thing for the knees. The hips, you'll see that there's kind of a diagonal line right here. And that's to make sure that we have proper edge looping for the hips so they can move in and out. Areas where there's detail, so like his pants have a crease on the front, there's extra edge loops here in order to accommodate that. And you'll see that basically these edge loops are being drawn from the front of the pants, and then they pinch right through here, and then they separate. So I'm not running a bunch of extra edge loops just to create this. They're just kind of pinching, or they're coming together to create that extra shape. You'll see that some of these areas have these scoots need a little bit extra detail, and so there are extra face loops around here to kind of support some of this detail. And then some of these areas where I don't need it, I don't have very heavy face density, right, in this area for the tail, but it gets pretty dense up here for the scoots on the tail, on the horns, or the saw blade look on that tail. But when you get it done properly, you have a character that can move fairly well and can bend all of their appendages properly. All right, in the next video, I'm going to go ahead and import and start retopoing this guy in both Maya and in ZBrush.